What is it?
How would you like to run the call? Like any particular
It's our
format you like
talk,
it?
so there'll be people, no call today. I'm just
Yeah,
waiting. Yeah, yeah. We might have a few people, but as Derek was mentioning, in Africa, it's a time. Kenya, there's time for people to go home, so we might lose a few people, but we have everyone's note takers coming in. Brian. Hi, Brian's note taker. Let me share my screen. Okay, perfect. You guys can see my screen, correct?
I've started the live stream.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you so much, Derek. Do we know if Mr. Kiranga is joining today? Andy has joined. Christian, Vinik. We're going to obviously give people 5 minutes or so and have people join in, and we are recording for posterity, so we are good. Joining in. Let me joining in for everyone. Christian, hi.
Hi, good evening. Well, good morning for you if you're in New York.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Where are you joining from?
From Mauritius.
Mauritius. Okay, lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Abhinav.
Oh, you met Abhinav,
Hi.
right? From the
Yes,
last.
yes.
Yes, yes, we met last time.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
Absolutely excited to be here. We'll get started in a few minutes, waiting for a few more
Sure.
people. But you know, it's a little odd time for many people in that time zone, I realized, but this was the only one I was able to do today.
Right.
We're recording, so we should be fine. Derek, do you know if we have Kirangai joining in?
Maybe let me just give him a call and
Yeah, sure.
Electrician gave the last talk at the
Correct.
program
Correct.
session.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to one of my colleagues from the Commonwealth Secretariat. We are trying to finalize this report on a roadmap for investment in what we're calling a national agricultural data infrastructure.
Nice.
I think in about a month's time, we should be ready to have a first like a webinar with the people we've met before, and then we'll open. And then I think we should then maybe get the Godan community to join in the conversations. There's a lot happening in terms of this. People are using the term DPI.
Yeah.
Is a lot of traction, but we're saying, well, there's a tendency to focus a lot on the technology and not so much on the integration with all the sector-wide and the sector applications. So we'll see.
Okay. All right, we'll make maybe 2 more minutes and then I'll
will not be able to join. He's in the
okay, no
agroecology
problem.
conference.
Cool, cool. We are recording, so no problem. We'll give 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Andy, hi. Mary is joining. All right.
Nowadays, you have as many note takers as participants.
Exactly. I was just saying the same
You
thing.
need to divide by it.
People send note takers these days. Not a huge fan. I mean, sometimes it works, but not all the time.
Yeah.
It also, one of my mentors taught me, it keeps people's attention away. They know that the note is being taken, so I don't need to pay attention.
Mm.
So it does that a lot. I was taught about this in a different context, that if you are in the most important meeting, the best note taking is you can give your attention and your curiosity. If you, the moment you take out your phone or to record something, you're gone. You actually are never going to
Yeah.
understand that fully.
Yeah.
So I use that in my personal life and my professional life a lot. Do not record the most important things in your life.
Yeah. It's well, I've seen the recordings are useful, or the transcripts are useful for the ones who's trying to make a summary of the meeting,
100%.
conversations, and I've used it to, you do a transcript, and then you try to get a summary, and then but you still have to, if you take your notes, you will be able to find the most important things anyway there in your
Correct.
bullet point, and then you supplement it with the details.
Like many a times we make notes and nobody thinks it's important but I know it, so I would put 3 stars to it. The note taker doesn't know that that was important, so it will record it,
Yeah.
but it's not going to highlight it.
Yeah.
All right, we have a few more people coming in. That's perfect. The more the merrier. Mr. Christian, are you have you always been based out of Mauritius?
No, I'm originally from Mauritius. Then I worked in the SADC region, Southern African Development Community.
Which
for about
part?
5 years. I was in Botswana.
You're in Botswana. Okay.
But then we were servicing the 15 member countries of the region. Then I came back to Mauritius, and I worked in the Netherlands for an organization that was a joint center between the African, Caribbean, Pacific countries and European Union. So it was called CTA.
Okay. Yeah, I know CTA.
Yeah. Okay. So in all, well, the people who are involved in ICT and agriculture.
Yeah, exactly.
I was there until 2018. Then I moved to Accra in Ghana, to the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa.
Wonderful.
And then after 1 year of COVID, I decided to come back here. So
Back to
now I'm
Mauritius.
trying to be based here, but still keeping in touch with everything that's happening. So
Nice.
and
All
it's been good. It's been interesting. So I'm able to use my own time, but to reflect on things that are interesting to me. Yeah.
That's
But
great.
I still miss the interaction with people on topics. So like, for example, AI and so on. So I'm trying to keep up, but then having a conversation with someone who knows more, that you can actually
100%.
But online is also not so bad, but having
Yeah.
and then you see the collective wisdom coming out of it.
At the same time, it's not a replacement of what we can do when we collaborate in person. But yeah, it's a good temporary substitution, a bridge gap.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. No more than that.
Yeah.
All right. I think I just had one more person, and I'm going to start at 10:09 just to piss off OCD people in this room, not at 10:10. It's 10:08 right now. I'm going to start sharing my screen. See, people are coming in. All right. When I run my physical workshops, when people come this late, they have to dance. Now I can't do that on Zoom, so I miss that. But yeah. Okay. Some people are coming back in. Okay, let me share screen.
You can make people dance on Zoom.
Yeah, totally. But looking at the fact that there are fewer people, I do not want to scare them away that they have to dance. So let them, maybe their note takers can dance. Okay, let me share. Just give me 1 minute. Hi, Abhinav from France. It's so weird to have two Abhinavs. I literally thought when he first connected us to you, I'm like, he's making it up. Maybe he meant, why is he using his own name? Like, I don't know. But here you are in full flesh and blood. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And Abhinav, I think you are also the co-host, so let people in as you
Yes.
put them in. I
Absolutely.
can focus on my screen sharing. I think everybody should be able to see, and the loading is by default. It's not your computer. So everybody can see my screen. All right, let's get the party started. So welcome everyone. This is also for people watching it later on because we are recording this. Also for people who are watching probably live on YouTube. I'm Dhairya Pujara, the regional lead for Godan North America, joining in from New York. I've been part of Godan for last 9 years, courtesy Kirangai, who is the global head for Godan. It's been quite an interesting journey, and I'm going to share relatively a very non agricultural talk today because I come from a non-agricultural background, and I want to still convince all of you that why it's important for you to invest your time, energy, efforts in agriculture. So hooray, listening from somebody who actually had nothing to do with agriculture like 8 years ago, probably. I didn't even know where my food came from. I could hardly make tea, so that's where I started from. So if anybody here feels a little not so sure about why they want to be here, just stay tuned. I will join the dots for you. But a little bit about me. So I'm also the founder CEO for Y Center, a company based out of Philadelphia. I create experiential learning programs for university students, innovation centers, incubators, maker spaces, and the other 50% of our time at Y Center, we are focused on doing policy consulting work. We work with large-scale Fortune 500 companies on helping them use an entrepreneurial approach to launch new products and services. I've traveled to 26 countries. I lived in 3 of them. And Mr. Krishan, you were saying you were based in Botswana. I was asking because I lived in Southern Africa and Mozambique for a while. So I always am looking for somebody else who's ever lived there. It's rare, but Botswana is fascinating. I speak 4.5 human languages and a few computer languages. But that's a little bit about me. I also have the QR code if you wish to connect with me on LinkedIn. Why you need to do that? Probably you are not decided yet. I'll give the code again in the end. So, let's move on. I want to start right up with something I'm extremely passionate about. I'm a problem solver. In fact, I literally invented a term called, I think I have a compulsive problem solving disorder. If there is not a problem, I'll create one, so that could be an issue for a lot of people, but I love problems. So a lot of today's talk, I'm going to be talking about problems, and problems. In fact, full disclaimer, all my work is around problems. I'm obsessed with problems. I think we place too much importance on technology and solutions. Also, another full disclosure, I'm a biomedical engineer. I got my master's degree. I was a researcher on medical imaging technology. So I've been into tech. I use tech every day in my life, including right now at this very moment. But I think they're all the medium and they change every few years. To be obsessed with tech means you're limiting yourself. But being obsessed with problems, breaking news, you're never going to run out of them. They keep coming. Agriculture is one such complex issue. Now, without getting too much into the details of different kinds of problems, here is a very simple chart. This probably is the only thing you need to remember. I look at, and just not me, I think problems are into these 3 categories: simple, complex, and wicked. Most of the issues that we deal with in the world of agriculture, economics, sustainability, they fall in the second 2 categories: complexity and wicked problems. Complexity, you might have already read it. It's potentially difficult to define what's even wrong with this problem. Like, for example, poverty. This is kind of a one-way conversation right now, but I want everybody to think for a moment. How many of you have ever thought of poverty as a problem? It's not. Because if I spend next 1 hour and I ask you all to define poverty, there won't even be consensus between 2 people on what the definition of poverty is. You will starting using terms like, oh, it's relative. And then I'll ask you, it's relative to what? It's relative to which country you are in. It's relative to your current position, your benchmark, and then what do you want? Then we will get into the discussion of wants and needs. For some people, not ability to having access those wants is also poverty. Urban poverty, just there is immense amount of lack of clarity amongst people when it comes to defining poverty. And my simple as a compulsive problem solver, I'm like, if you can't define a problem, don't call it a problem yet. So poverty is an effect. You can't solve for it. You can solve for the causes, underlying causes for it. And that's really why we need access to initiatives like Godan, which focuses on open data, which is what I'm going to make a case today. Open data combined with design thinking. Why is it the most powerful thing you can ever imagine? So complex problems are one of the big issues because you can't even define it. Talking about wicked problems, these are the worst. If you try to solve them, you'll actually end up creating 3 more problems. Hey, welcome to the world of international development. We have been living this. Let's give, and this is not a political statement. Trust me when I say that. I've read this amazing book a couple of years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, called Dead Aid. The economist's name is Dambisa Moyo. You guys can look it up. That's a good reference. And she says how giving aid and charity to Africa has actually not helped. In fact, she uses much stronger words. It has actually created more problems than it has solved. And when I first read it, I'm like, oh, this must be just a controversial book for the heck of it. But then I read it, I got a chance to meet her. And I remember this was just before I was going to Mozambique in Africa to live there. And I asked her, hey, do you have any tips for me? Because she's been to every African country. She is born, I think she's born in Zambia. She's now an American. She lives here. I think she's a global citizen, I mean. But she whispered in my ear, she's like, that's only one country I've never been to. So when you come back, you tell me how it was. So I love that. But she's one of the top economists in the world who wrote about this book called Dead Aid. But it really opened my eyes on how broken the model of aid and charity is, because the intention of doing something good doesn't equate to you actually doing something good. I usually have a lot of examples around this on my slides. I don't have those slides today because today is a different kind of a talk. It's a different kind of a setup. But I do want to give one example before I move on to the next slide. The problem of malaria, which is also rampant across Africa. We know that. I studied a lot about malaria. I was obsessed with it for a while. In fact, my first big solution at Y Center was creating technology app to fight malaria, which is how actually I met Kirangai and I got on my Godan journey. I was obsessed with malaria back in 2012 when I first went to Mozambique. So I started researching and I saw that malaria was eradicated in US in 1952, probably 53. I'm like, oh, it must not be curable. Oh, it is preventable, it is diagnosable and curable, and people still die of it. Like, logically, I'm an engineer. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit the algorithm. How can somebody die of a preventable, diagnosable, curable disease? Yeah, we have insane amount of health issues that are either unpreventable because of lifestyle issues, or if you get them, you can probably diagnose them, but you can't cure them, and people die of it. I get it that we need to work on that, but how can people still die of this disease? So I was really, really like obsessed about solving this, and we ended up creating a solution. That's not the point. But when I was researching, I saw that a lot of people obviously believe it's a problem, like I said, but they were they had a very good intention of solving the problem, but they didn't really connect the act of it. Here is an example, including in the book Dead Aid. A bunch of American philanthropists, investors, they raised $1 million. They sent mosquito nets to Mozambique and a few other countries to solve this problem. Number one, Mozambique. I'm sure I'm speaking to a choir here because you guys know where that is. But even in America, most people don't know where Mozambique is on the map. Unfortunately, the geography is bad. It's a country, southern coast of Africa. It's a coastal country. So people are using these mosquito nets for fishing. The worst part is these mosquito nets are treated with insecticides and pesticides kind of. Now you're putting that in freshwater lake and river. You're polluting your water sources with that poison. So you not only did not solve the problem, you created one more additional issue. The second issue that happens is when you send free mosquito nets, you're actually destroying the local economy. You do not have any more people buying local mosquito nets because you have American free nets. In economics, it's called a multiplier effect. You're actually pushing people further into poverty who are in the business. And you can't fight free. Guess what? You can't. This is basic economics. And I was so baffled that, oh yeah, but they had great intentions. They did want to solve malaria. They sent mosquito nets. They donated mosquito nets. It didn't have any impact. So we need to take a radically different approach of how we solve problems. I promise, this is the only study. I want to focus a lot on design thinking, as the title suggests. But this is my favorite quote. In fact, I have the poster of this in front of me as well, a physical one, but I put it here for you guys on the slide. If I had an hour to solve the problem, I'd spend 55 minutes understanding the problem, probably 5 minutes on solution. The beautiful part about this quote is I found out that probably Albert Einstein never said this, but I don't care. It's a good quote, you know. I love this quote now, so I'm going to use it. And then there are versions of this, like Lincoln said, if I have an hour to chop the tree, I'll spend 55 minutes sharpening my axe. So, you know, there are various versions of this, but probably nobody said it. Probably everybody said it. Thankfully, there was no TikTok back then, so we can't go to Albert Einstein's Instagram or TikTok account and find out if he ever said this. But what's design thinking and why am I obsessed with problems? If you Google design thinking, you'll find a lot of different charts and everything. But this one is my most favorite picture. It's very simple, but it's a double diamond process. And I use this at work and in my personal life. I do not jump to solutions. I do not ever start my statement saying I'm creating an AI-based app to fight this. I don't care about your AI. I don't care about your blockchain. Thank you. See you later. I want to focus first on you proving that the problem you're solving is really a problem. The problem you're solving really needs to be solved. And the customers you are solving for also want it to be solved. By the way, that's not always the case. Sometimes you think you are obsessed with the problem, but nobody wants it to be solved. I have a lot of examples for that as well, but that is for another talk, maybe a sequel talk for this one. But this double diamond process is one of my favorite ones. I usually use this. The first diamond focuses on deciding what to fix, defining what to fix, focusing on the cause, using Japanese techniques like 5 whys, trying to find the root cause. Why does this happen? Okay, now why does this happen? Keep going until you stop. Asking 5 whys, one of my another favorite techniques. And then the second diamond focuses on solution. And if you notice, again, that's a diamond because it starts with divergent. Do not start in your head, I know exactly how I'm going to solve it. You probably think you know it right now. The moment you go to the market, you're going to fail. So you start with divergent. Come up with at least 50 different bad ideas before you have one good idea. So I tell a lot of young people that I work with that, hey, do not settle for one. You're going to probably pivot. You're going to change. It's going to happen. So start with 100, 200 bad ideas first, because to get one good idea, you need a lot of bad ideas. So that's the second diamond, divergent. And then eventually your idea has to turn into a solution. Ideas are not solution. People often confuse this. Oh, I have a great idea. I don't care. Companies don't have chief idea officer. They have chief execution officer. Your execution matters. Ideas are dime a dozen. Anybody can come up with ideas. If you and I just stop talking right now, I open the floor, everybody will have some idea on how they want to change the world. I hope so. If you don't, then you're definitely in the wrong place. But everybody does today. If they don't, they just go to ChatGPT and they ask. That's okay. I'm not a big fan of doing that. I'm a fan of the app, tech and app, but not the process of how people use it. So yeah, this is my double diamond process for design thinking. I'm going to show you a picture of why data is important. But I realize this is a very one-way communication. I don't have people joining in here with their videos, except for 2 Abhinavs that I have. But I'm going to reserve that picture maybe for later. And Krishan, you are right here as well. Let's do this actually between the 4 of us. This is one of my most favorite pictures to prove on why data is important. So because we are here for Godan, we are here for Global Open Data. Now, many of you have seen this on the internet. If not, I want to just very quickly share this amazing story. It falls under the concept of survivorship bias. What you're looking at is a picture of a US Army airplane, US Air Force. It came back from the war zone, and all the red spots are where the plane was hit with enemies. The enemy hit plane on that side, and the plane came back. Now, the US Air Force is sitting in a boardroom and they're deciding which part of the airplane they need to reinforce, looking at the data, right? You have data, you have real tangible data now. You're looking at this. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time asking people. Some of you may have already seen this, but the crux of it is most people end up giving me answers. I'm going to focus on the centerpiece, on the wings, where I see a lot of red dots because the plane has been hit so much. That seems very intuitive. I'm going to look at the wing, the tail part of the aeroplane, which is where, it's hit again. That's very intuitive and that's okay. But the answer is exactly the opposite. You want to reinforce the parts where there are no hits. There are 2 reasons. One, you actually don't know what happens to the plane when they get hit in those zones, because the planes don't come back. This is the plane that came back. You have data from a plane that came back. So these parts actually work, which is great. Second piece is you actually are looking and interpreting the missing data now. So people often think, I know when I look at data, 30% people in the world are food insecure. I understand everything I need to understand about food insecurity. What else don't you know? So, for example, people who have a certain income level will never be considered poverty according to economics. But little do you know that they are not able to spend that money on food. They probably also have same issues as somebody who is below that poverty line. But we don't have that nuances in our data understanding, because we usually, people are not data. I mean, I may be preaching here. People are not data. People are real stories. People are real emotions. There are families. There are kids. They're more than data. But when we merely treat people as statistics and data, we actually take out all the humanity and storytelling from it, and we lose out that perspective. To bring that humanity back, I want to share one more picture and make the case for human-centered design. This is, again, one of my other most favorite examples of why it matters what solution you create. A lot of time people say, oh, I have an amazing idea. I'm going to solve the world problem, blah, 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 blah. So I'm a biomedical engineer. So please indulge me for this one last example, which is from healthcare. And then I'm going to jump into agriculture, I promise. This is a picture of a baby incubator. Incubators, as some of you might know, they help babies regulate their temperature, especially premature babies. The one you're looking at your screen right now is made up of car parts. It is made up of recycled car parts, cars that are not in use anymore. So it's the picture you are seeing is actually from that. It was made by a bunch of MIT students, Rhode Island School of Design. It made onto Time Magazine's top 50 inventions in the year 2010. It was very well celebrated. Everybody was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to ask this group if anybody wants to give it a shot. Why is this the most amazing invention? If you think about it, I'll give probably a minute or two. If not, I'll just go on and tell you why this is an important example to consider. And if you know, then that's also okay. I don't mind. But anybody wishes to guess?
It's using locally available resources, car parts, which are
Absolutely, Abhinav. That's a big one. Why does that make it amazing? There are many things that are locally made, but why does it become a global sensation of that level? What is the biggest plus about using that local parts? That's what you said is actually what leads to the eventual answer. So you are on the right track.
breaking fixedness and using regular parts for another purpose.
Yeah, sure. So reusing is great. Reusability is great. Less of a waste. But one of the biggest things, what happens here is, Abhinav, if this breaks, I'm just going to put a question. Who do you call to fix this?
Mechanic.
That's it. The good part about that is you'll find mechanic in every part of the world. You might not find a biomedical engineer or a specialized medical engineer who knows how to fix a medical device. Baby incubators are extremely complicated. Most medical devices require specialized engineers or technicians. You can't just go on YouTube and DIY stuff. This one you can. I joke often. Any part of the world, you can find bacteria and mechanics. They're everywhere. Just everywhere. Doesn't matter. Even if it's a war-torn country, you'll find a mechanic, which is the genius part of it, that you'll find mechanic. And so this device becomes functionally sustainable. We talk about sustainability in terms of economics. Oh yeah, how long can this product run? About money and revenue and all. But this product works without intervention from the creators of the product. A lot of interventions I feel are created and imposed upon from the Western perspective. I've seen that first-hand perspective in Africa a lot. I've traveled enough in a few countries to see that a lot of ideas, a lot of solutions come from the West. I'm so glad this group right here, we have changed that already. Godan in last 9 years, we've developed so many local. In fact, we have one of them right here, Derek, his name is Godan on the screen. But Derek is a perfect example. He has created a mechanical engineering student, found a problem, defined it, created his own solution, created a company around it. And that's a prime example for me how we need our own localized ideas to solve our local problems. So this is a perfect example of functional sustainability because it's completely end-to-end locally done. Now, of course, we know about the global goals and they all tie up. This very much ties up to the G of Godan, that Godan is, we might be focused on agriculture and nutrition. And my next 5 slides are literally going through G, OD, and AN of Godan to break each one of them down. But the G part of Godan, if you look at the global piece, I challenge all of you, anything you're working on in agriculture, it connects to every single goal. We can make connection to every single goal in some way. It's hardly, like it's almost impossible to leave any one of this behind when you're working. You probably have a direct connection to 1 or 2, and then you have indirect connections to all of them. But let's get to Godan, which is why we are here. I want to show you each of these examples. I hope you guys know what is Godan. But if not, here is a refresher. Global open data, agriculture, nutrition. Why global? So I want to give you, because we are talking data. If you look up, Africa has a problem of 868 million people under food insecurity. I'm like, wow, that's quite big. That's 20% of the population. A lot of biggest issues living in US. And I remember Godan Summit in New York. Most people thought, oh, this is an African issue. Breaking news, US has 47.4 million people also coming from households that are food insecure. That's, if you think percentage wise, it's 13% of American households. It's not an African issue. It's a global issue. That's why Godan is truly global. We are not just focused on Africa. I want to break that misconception today. Most people think UN, SDGs, the work we do is only for Africa. It's for, and I'm not saying this term, but I hear this term. It's for third world countries. It's for poor countries. Like absolute nonsensical ideas, age old, living in the under the caves. Most issues that we deal with are global issues. They're all very much connected. Everybody's facing through these issues. During pandemic, in fact, the entire American bubble was popped that how many people in US had issues, not even access to internet. There was a huge digital divide exposed in the US as well. Internet is, by the way, extremely expensive in US. It's much cheaper in Kenya and India. And I've been there, you know. So people do not understand that the gravity of problem is quite global. So we are global. We are global in multiple ways. We have Kirangai running the global head. I'm in North America. We have Derek in East Africa. We have Abhinav in Asia. Now helping us with Europe and, you know, hopefully West Africa. We are working with him. He's also on the call. We are looking to connect with more in Australia, South America. So, you know, ideas are welcome. Maybe someday Antarctica, you know, maybe they also need farming. I hope not. Let's leave them alone. But Godan is truly global. I want to talk about the open data. When I first learned about Godan, I think the most beautiful part about it is data owned by farmers and used by innovators. That ownership piece was very clear from day one. So when I got to work with Kirangai in Kenya, we actually visited multiple farms. We worked with multiple young people around different provinces. And the biggest part was we were not asking for data from anybody. We were not taking it away. We were creating a central platform where did the data rest, and people still actually get paid for it anytime somebody else uses it. From soil data to satellite data, improving credit access to actually faster insurance payouts. Biggest issue was, let's say a farmer was coming out to even receive some kind of a loan. They didn't even have a bank account. We know this problem. It's many emerging economies have this issue. But with data, we are able to identify, we are able to actually give them an identity, which they were completely missing. It is almost like they're not participating in the economy, which is absolutely unfair. But with data, we can change that. So a lot of focus of Godan, like literally at the heart of Godan is open data. I have had the privilege to also work in Philadelphia, which is where I used to live before, which is where I started Y Center. And I work with Philadelphia government, and they have this initiative called Open Access Philadelphia. You have access to government data, and they're literally inviting young people that come and take our data and build something on top of it. If you don't have something, let us know. We'll throw data. So many American cities have pledged open data. Godan, literally the job is for us to bring open data sets to you, to all the young people, to actually build solutions. If you think something is missing, let us know. We'll go and have a chat with that organization. I have actually on my next slide, you know, a very basic FAO, for example, FAO Stat. They have a lot of data that you can easily access for free. Again, a lot of this data may not be as localized as you might need, but that can inspire to build your own localized data models. So we are happy to talk to you. We have done that in Kenya. I know, Christian, you're doing that something not similar, but a different initiative in Mauritius, which is very much aligned with what we are talking about. So we are obsessed with data. Probably the O should change to obsessed with data, not open data. Like that's how important it is for Godan, you know, global obsession with data, agriculture, and nutrition. I think I would just change Godan's full form. But that there is another link. If you guys reach out to me, I'm happy to send you that picture from top 15 data sets in agriculture. I didn't put it on my slide because I wanted to leave something for you guys to connect with me. Now there's a reason for you to connect with me. So I'll send that to you. But agriculture and nutrition, why is the focus on agriculture and nutrition? I started my own journey with healthcare. How did I pivot there? When I was working in public health, I realized how closely it was tied up to the food they eat. How closely was it tied up to our climate? How closely was it tied up to agriculture in that village? So for starters, rising food demand, simple, no logic here, nothing crazy, very basic, linear understanding. We need more food. Most young people think, oh, I don't want to get into agriculture because it's boring. It's meant for old people. Breaking news, agriculture uses more technology than probably a lot of things in your home. It uses everything from drones to AI to predictive analytics. So if you like technology, agriculture is the place to be. I know everybody wants to work in tech. That's the thing. But agriculture uses tech. You don't have to actually put your boots on the ground, and even you probably never even have to go to farm. There's so much work in agriculture you can do literally sitting on a computer. But I think you should go to the farm so that you actually understand what problem you're solving. Second is employment creation. That's huge. As an entrepreneur, I think the biggest catch here is we still have, I have a data right here, the biggest employment sector in across African continent still remains agrarian. We are still an agrarian economy. So if you even want a job, there isn't enough jobs. So it's actually, it's a better time to start an entrepreneurial venture. You can create jobs. You have to. In fact, it's out of compulsion. There isn't enough job. I have statistics probably on my next slide. Oh yeah, there is a roughly 8 million job deficit right now in Africa every year on year. So and it's compounding every year, because the young people who didn't find job in 1 year, they're also going to be jobless in second year. So it's a compounding effect. By 2050, we are going to have probably 200 million people out of job, like not out of job, they just don't have enough jobs. So people, you would obviously, the next thing you see is brain drain. People have to go to Europe, they have to go to other places to find jobs. So employment creation is a big. And the last one is digital transformation. Again, bringing my point back to technology and climate smart practices. Now, all of this is great, but I still recommend to use the approach of human-centered design thinking, that please try to understand what is in it in the agriculture that you are attracted to. Do not jump because you read an article or because I told you on this slide, because 500 million people don't have food. That's not how people think. Every human being operates at a very personal level. So one of the things the way I started my agricultural journey, when I first came to Kenya, I had never done any work in agriculture in 2016. And when I actually worked with farmers, I worked with young people from different provinces. There was one of the guys who came from Maasai. I still remember, from Maasai community, and his name was Kennedy. I remember his name clearly. I'm sure he has another Maasai name, but he told me his name is Kennedy. I'm like, okay, Kennedy. Kennedy used to tell me of how even 10 years ago, he would have never come to Nairobi if it was not for the fact that the climate is changing and his entire community is at the risk of being displaced. The reason he was in Nairobi from his village is because he had to learn the new tricks of agriculture, and he wants to go back and he wants to solve the problem. In fact, I need to figure out if I can get in touch with Kennedy. It's been like 8-9 years now. Kiran Guy can help me do that maybe. And I remember him distinctly because he gave me a note from Burundi, which was expired like from 50 years ago, and he gave it to me. I still have that. That was a special gift. I got it like a one rupee, whatever. I don't know what is the denomination in Burundi, but I have that note with me. It's very ancient. So that came from him. But agriculture and nutrition is literally the backbone, and it's going to always be that. Food is never going to be out of fashion, guys. So anybody is thinking, oh, should I be in this field? What is the future of this field for me as a young person? Hey, this is never going out of fashion. You can have all the TikToks and all the Instagrams and YouTube and everything in the world. You still need food. Everybody needs food. You can have all the data centers, but you'll also need food. Doesn't matter. So thankfully, you're in a good sector if you're focusing on agriculture and nutrition. There's always a demand. And the most beautiful part about it is, I think, connecting agriculture with employment, with entrepreneurship, to be specific. I think it's a no-brainer in my head. There aren't enough jobs. On the other hand, we have enough issues in agriculture that need to be fixed. It's a perfect match. It's like, if you're data driven, then here is a data point, right? 8 million job deficit just in African continent. And it's a primarily agrarian economy. It's a no-brainer for anyone on this call. If you are not working in agriculture, and use technology, don't use technology, make a service company, build a simple credit loan company. Doesn't matter what you're building, but there is a need for all kinds of applications to solve this problem. So it's a perfect match. You're solving two problems when you're focusing onto this. I want to open up the floor to question, but I just have this one last slide to make sure that I make my point again. Agriculture is where you can play with all the technology. Agriculture is sexy, guys, because I know young people have told me agriculture is not cool. It's not sexy. I don't want to work in that field. It is. I've dedicated my life for last 8 years working on this. I've got a chance to travel to Nigeria, working with ministers of agriculture, telling them how they can improve their policies around agriculture sustainability. I wouldn't have got that opportunity if I was not doing this. Courtesy Godan Network, I have had a chance to participate in multiple UN events, including G77, climate conference in Stockholm. So I'm very grateful to have got access to that kind of people, to that kind of network, and meet tons of entrepreneurs solving these problems. So trust me, if you don't trust me, trust my story. Agriculture is where you have a lot of exposure, you have a lot of potential to build innovations, and we are here to work with you. So join us as a student, as an entrepreneur, as a university, as a researcher, as a farmer, and we would love to work with you. Thank you so much for listening. I would just open up the call if anybody wants to have a discussion, questions, anything you have, but I'm going to stop sharing my slides and I'll come back right here. Yes. Shoot questions.
Okay, so Ferry, thank you very much. I will go first.
Yes.
So the big question is now with the ideas we have, what are some of the way that we the youth can either fundraise, either to kick off your business? So in this same industry, in terms of the design thinking, you've been able to establish and you started out, you told me you quit your work the first day. So you have all been into entrepreneurship from the word go. So what is the trick? How and we know one of the biggest problems within us, the youth, is raising funds so that you are able to take your idea, your solution to the next level. Thank you.
Yeah, Derek, that's a great question. And I always tell people, and people have told me, you come and give this talk, go and start a company. How will we raise money? Where do we start from? It's not easy. The good part is I'm saying nothing out of lack of experience. I did exactly what I'm saying. As you said, Derek, I quit my job and I started my company and I bootstrapped my company. I didn't have an economic background to get any kind of financial support from anyone. But the good part is, if you start small, especially this is where I really love the idea of tech. The amount of free tech access we have. If you tell me you are most people want to build tech-based venture, some kind of a tech-based venture, you can absolutely create anything for free of cost if you are smart enough to connect 5 different technologies and build something and ship it out. People have this, but I don't know why. Probably we have glamorized entrepreneurship and fundraising so much that everybody thinks that I need to raise a lot of money to be able to start a company. Maybe that's a part of it. But if you do not create if you can't create a basic product by yourself, kind of have this first quick validation without spending any money, then you shouldn't jump into this. I actually wrote an article many years ago, Don't Be an Entrepreneur, which is exactly opposite of what I'm talking right now. You can Google my name and write that title, you'll find that article online. That article, obviously the title is misleading because I do talk about why you should be an entrepreneur, but you shouldn't be if you do not have that risk-taking ability to be able to build your first product by yourself. If you do not have means to validate your problem with your community, if you do not understand the people you're solving the problem for, but most importantly, I have also looked at design thinking as a tool where you stop solving problem for the people and you start solving it with them. I'm right now advising a company that is building an AI-based tool to help investors make faster investment decisions. I asked him how many investors you've spoken to. And they said, oh no, I know about it. I've read so many articles. I've done this. I'm like, but how many of you have spoken to? They're like, we haven't spoken because we don't think we are ready yet. We don't have a product. I'm like, that's where you go wrong. You think you're going to build a product and then go and show it to them that, are you going to use this? Which is what most people do. But with design thinking approach, you bring them very early at the problem stage. Like, hey, I just want you to give me permission to shadow you, to look at your life, a day in the life of an investor, kind of validate the problem. And then I want to see if I can do something for you to help you with that. I think most people, because you're not asking for money, you're only asking for their time and you're asking for permission to observe. Most nice people in the world will agree to help you with that. So I would say the same logic is applicable for a lot of solutions we build for a lot of projects. Make your ask in a way where it doesn't have to start with fundraising. If you start with fundraising, I acknowledge that, Derek, it's very hard to start a company, especially in Africa. Africa doesn't have access to huge amount of risk capital like US has or many other countries in Europe have. Um, but that's changing. I've had multiple conversations with people who want to build VC firms focused only on African entrepreneurs, who want to start angel investment companies in African ventures. They also want to only invest in people who they have confidence. So I feel the network we are building here, and I know Kirangai and I have spoken about this, about how can we invest in people like financially as well to help them grow their ventures. So it's happening. I'm generally a very optimistic person. So I think I would say that even the fundraising scene is changing. And now with the latest, if you really want to look, if you want to look at a positivity in the current political climate, the good part is we all have understood we have to look out for ourselves. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for multiple African countries to stand up and to build their own resilient tools that they can help their own young people. And it's all out there, so it's a matter of connections. But from a young person perspective, just build and ship it out. That's what I would say, which you have done, Derek. So I'm speaking to somebody who's done it.
Hello.
Thank you.
No problem. Any more questions, thoughts, comments? Brian.
Hello.
Yes, Brian.
Okay. As a developer, as a software engineer in training, who's interested in Godin's technological landscape, having worked under Mr. Derek Ngegi's supervision, I was just asking, are there any specific open source projects that Godin maintains to facilitate like developer engagement? For example, like international, like global projects, including working with data sets or AI models or just anything projects like technologically.
Derek can actually, since you're working with Derek, he will tell you this is actually our ambition. This is why I told come and join Godin. I think, Brian, what you just said is, I'm not even going to take it as a question. I'm going to pose it back to you as a request and a challenge and an opportunity. And let's build it. We have that kind of. So if you say, oh, I will need access to server space, I will need access. We have all that. That's not a problem. We need talent. So if we can build something a much bigger, much global, which is what we are, I would love to work with you, Brian, and build it out. So we actually have tried to build a lot of localized models, in fact, with Godin, where you can request data for specific crops, for specific soil data. But obviously the ambition is big. And I think we were on set to building that pre-pandemic. I'll be honest, it got derailed because of our organizational change, funding issues, but we are back on track now for last 1.5 year. And I think as we continue to, get also somebody like you, Brian, get more and more people who are interested in building this with us, we will definitely get there sooner than later, So the goal is to build something more global in nature. We do have one more company called Agribora, part of our network. They're a satellite company, geospatial mapping company. So I would say they have access to a lot of geospatial data sets, which we share with them, which is quite global in nature. So yes, we do have aspects of it, but what you said is also our ambition.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to engage with Derek and see how can gather more data.
And Brian, what's your background? What do you study?
I study software engineering degree,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I'm specializing in AI and machine learning and basically IoT, and yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Have a lot of we need a lot of help from people like you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I had a question.
Yes,
Venkat.
Abhinav.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Wonderful. I love the way the storytelling and everything. And my favorite quote also is from Einstein, the same one.
Oh, nice.
I'll share with you, my brother, he had also worked on a malaria solution. You can check, it's called the solar scare mosquito, and it had gone viral on YouTube, and even Bill Gates tweeted about it. So I can happy to discuss and
Pranav
connect with my
Agarwal.
brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My question was for Godan. I had two questions. So one was in terms of open data, what is the geographic coverage? So is it also like environmental data, soil data, nutrition data? So in that
Yeah.
case, like, is it Africa, India, or like there are other portals through which it can get connected? Second question was the solutions that Godan is developing. Is Godan also building or collaborating with all the projects around DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, and I think there are some India, France, Europe platforms for agriculture also.
Yeah. So yes, all kinds of data. To answer your question very simply, we have, in fact, we used to be participating in this coalition called RU Forum, which had agencies like NASA as part of it. So we got access to a lot of climate data over there. So all data came from ground level. So when we realized that we are missing that in Africa, the ground level data, Godan, in fact, one of the first things Godan did back, as I would say, 9 years ago, is we started creating farm hubs in local provinces. The reason, I mean, then it evolved to a lot more. It was not called farm hubs. Honestly, it was called ATEX hubs, Agriculture Technology and Extension Hubs. So I know we are recording, and when Kirangai listens to this, it is a lot of nostalgia for him as well, because that's what we used to call it. And it used to be extension centers where farmers would come for help for, as you know what extension center does. But in return, we would also get access to the data from their farms, which was generally never captured. We started creating a repository of that. So that was very fascinating for us to build ATEX hubs to get that data. But the reason we look out for partners, Godan is a secretariat, and it works on coalition. So if we need data from other countries, we need partners. Godan itself is not a piece of execution. It's not an execution organization. It's a secretariat that hosts other smaller execution organizations. So Derek's organization, Shamba Assistant, Y Center Shamba Solutions, in the name of the company, it does exactly that. It does soil testing. So we get data in return, and that feeds into the Godan repository. We need a lot of companies from around the world who can feed that data on a singular platform. Interoperability is one of the virtues we have pledged to, a value we have pledged to. So if we do end up feeding anything, even in Africa, if somebody in Europe needs access to that, yes, it should be a part of it. But we literally rely on advisors throughout the year. Just like you mentioned, I've heard of it, but I'm not aware of which platform you're talking about. So that's great that you would know of it. And Derek, who does our tech work for the Godan platform. Yeah, we have API in points and out points to be able to connect to other platforms that might also have API. We hope so, an open access point, because we have open access points on our API, so we can take in and take out data from anywhere, which is very important. It's something we tell all our partners. If you're building a data set, if you're building a platform, you better have in and out points. Otherwise, you can't collaborate with anybody. So I think that's that. And then you had one more question, which
it is regarding the geographic coverage, like
by the nature of it, it became very Africa focused, but we've had smaller engagements in India. Abhinav now, of course, revamping that again for us in India, in Singapore. Singapore is interesting because everything there is everything is man-made, as we know. But Singapore does a lot of innovations around indoor farming, vertical farming. So we have had work with academic professors, researchers in Singapore. And it's a little non-traditional to say we have access to data from Singapore, because again, Singapore is very controlled, and I feel that country is a lab in itself. The whole country is like very controlled. But we do have partnerships where we have that kind of data from there. And then very minimal engagement in West Africa, mainly because of language issues. But we've still not stopped from collaborating. In fact, 2 years ago, we ran an agriculture innovation program for Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast with a university in Morocco. And while they're French-speaking countries and a lot of students were primarily French-speaking, we had translators, we had interpreters, we had bilingual facilitators, through which we did establish basics of the fundamental of the network, which is our people. And then as we are human centered, we have the humans already figured out. We'll figure out the rest now, on how to get data from them. But excellent questions, Abhinav. We are a growing organization. We wouldn't have called ourselves growing maybe 3 years ago because we were very well established, but pandemic completely derailed a lot of our efforts. In fact, Godan moved from UK to Montreal, Canada, and then Kirangai stepped in to take the leadership from an organization which otherwise wouldn't have existed, by the way. So full props to the fact that he literally took upon overnight the charge of Godan and said, let's revitalize it and give it a more action-driven agenda. So we call it Godan 2.0 for that reason. The Godan 1.0 was passive and it had all access. Like it was very big. We used to have this 5-star conferences at large conference centers. All the politicians would come, everything. They would sign fancy stuff, but it was not action-driven. Godan 2.0 is literally this. It's students, it's farmers. We are taking a top to bottom to top approach for Godan 2.0.
Great.
All right. Any final thoughts, anyone? If not,
maybe from me.
Hello.
yes,
Hello.
Krishan.
Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, let's have Sabera and then we'll have Krishan. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Mine is rather a comment. I really love this issue of Godan. It can really bring paradigm shifts when it comes to the youth involvement in both agriculture and nutrition. Because I believe if the data is made accessible to youth, these are people who have time, they have minds, they can be able to actually analyze the data, come up with the problem that is ailing a given area, and even be able to come up with solutions. And when there is a collaboration, I heard one of them saying the shortage of finances, funds, maybe fundraising, but this can be really being done because when they have a problem, they can partner with other people. When it comes to something done locally, some things are not very expensive. And I believe really it can bring youth into agriculture and nutrition and be able to solve most of the problems that many regions are experiencing, especially in Kenya. I come from Kenya, and I'm saying this out of experience. We have youth that have started even their own enterprises. They can look at maybe it is a town, what is a problem, how can an area like in Setem be able to get food. They come up with things like vertical gardens, things like those ones. They are very smart. So if they are engaged, they have access to the data. I believe they can really bring paradigm shift when it comes to youth engagement in both agriculture and nutrition. I really love this idea of Godan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate you sharing those things. And where are you based?
I'm in Kenya, Rift Valley National Polytechnic.
Okay.
Which is,
Wonderful.
yes, yeah.
Thank you. And Krishan, you were sharing something.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back. As someone who's been involved with the initiative that was there before Godan, there was something we used to call CR, Coherence in Information for Agricultural Research for Development.
Oh, wow.
That was that was a big global initiative amongst the big players, the FAO, CGIAR, and so on, that came together, and GFA as well. At that time, I was working in a regional organization, so I could see how the global organizations were coming together to work together for the benefit of the regions and then of the countries, and obviously taking it down to the national level. And the story you told of Godan is that, yes, it started off with this idea of trying to do something at the global level, but I think Godan always tried to link it down to the ground.
Yeah.
But so while you were talking about the idea that today maybe technology is not the limiting factor, yeah, and just like in entrepreneurship, ideas are not the limiting factor. But what I'm trying to find the similarity between the process of ideation and then eventually leading to the development of an enterprise. The same thing goes down to data. I think maybe too many of us are thinking that we are going to make a business based on data itself, but I think it's not that. It's all about how well are we going to add value to the data we have. Now, when I say data, it's like Brian, it's not necessarily just the IoT data you're collecting, which is also useful. We're able to get data at a very granular level today, but Godan in its definition also looked at technology packages as data. So we need to think of data as not just the numbers, but also documents, technologies, and so on, which today people are talking about innovations. They're referring to them as innovation. So we need to take the concept of data as in being all that. Now, the question I'm going to ask all of you to think about is, if we've been dealing with data management and we've been dealing with solving agricultural problems for so many years, why are we not able to solve the simpler problems at the local level? And why are we not evolving to tackling those bigger problems? As Daria said, we are living we're dealing with complexity, but we should already have mastered the simpler problems. So, and again, let's not try to reinvent the wheel or learn from our mistakes. We've been in this business long enough that we can learn from someone else's mistake if we document our learning, so that the next time we tackle a problem, we know that this problem was addressed before, was resolved in a certain way. If that model works in my situation, then I can simply adopt and adapt it to my situation. So I'm asking the question in terms of how are we using data, and one of my observations is that I have not seen people talk about the process they have used to solve problems in agriculture using data enough. That we're all very happy to say we have a solution to offer to someone based on what we've done, but it's a very narrow lens that we've integrated vertically, and we're offering a solution. But why are we not broadening the base so that more people can apply the same solutions or solution packages, and then it enables us to have access to even more complex data and more detailed data to be able to address higher level problems. Otherwise, I think we're still going on the fact that we are focusing on data. I like the idea. In fact, I think I did discuss with Keringa way back on this idea of having this locally based, youth-driven data centers that are helping to pick up or collect information that is required for decision making from the ground level. But how does that now get integrated into larger regions at national level and even to the regional decision-making processes? At the same time, any kind of decisions or policies or technologies that have been developed can be, domesticated, localized using those through those smaller groups. I think that is perhaps the. Are you all there? I'm not sure. I can't see anyone there.
We are there.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. No, so I just saw. Everyone switched off their screen. I thought I was the only one there. Yeah. So the question is, how can we now come back to working together, not looking for funding, but at least putting our brains together to develop the methodology of working with data and building up this infrastructure ourselves? I would say that that would be an interesting theme for a series of webinars on how we've done it. And again, as Abhinav Agarwal was asking the question, Godan is not restricted to any region of the world. It's just that we tend to focus on Africa because we feel that there's a lot of problems to be addressed in Africa, but I'm sure the solutions might also have been resolved elsewhere. There are a lot of smaller countries, island states that probably need to learn from the others, but island states again can also serve as like a sandbox for us to say let's try out and really push, digitalization to the extreme, a bit like what Singapore would be in other cases, and see what we're learning from there, and then we scale it. But these are all the ideas that are coming through my mind at the moment. So I'm just leaving that with you, food for thought, and perhaps maybe that's where we need to discuss. If we need to decide, does Godan want to establish like a discussion forum where we can continue these discussions? Because having a webinar is a one-off event, but let's try to have that conversation going and building up and learning from each other. Thanks. So I'll leave you guys, Abhinav, as the coordinator on this to share your views, and obviously our guest speaker. He's gone all quiet. Maybe he's looking up.
No, actually, he's having an internet outage. Just right
okay.
now.
In New York, amazing.
Yeah.
So we're not the only ones. It's not only in Africa that we have internet outages. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great.
Thanks so much for adding your point, and really valuable to actually show case studies of what we actually build using open data. And yeah, I guess maybe we were actually just speaking with a few companies in India as well, which have used open data to help the government to build soil health cards. So the government is trying to give like soil health cards for each and every farmer. So it's like you get all the nutrients of the soil, and the government has to provide it on a regular basis. And they don't have the necessary facility to do that. So a lot of startups are actually coming up and providing their technology as a service to the government to be able to, provide that service to the farmer. So that's
Okay.
a very interesting case study as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. So just like we have farmer IDs, you can now have a plot ID or a farm ID that has all the data about the plot and the soil
Exactly.
that we're using as a resource.
Exactly. Soil
yeah.
health, carbon sequestration.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
linked.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So one of the ideas is to build like a solution library and the best practices all around the world. So then we have a problem, and then we have solutions which come up already, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. But in fact, you see, as you said, the solutions like when you read about DPI, I put the question to people who are working on DPI. I said, well, if a DPI is so modular and reusable, why is it that we're having so many different initiatives working on DPI? In India itself, okay, it's the same actors who are working around the whole concept of DPI, but you have Mozip for identity. If Mozip is really let's say the ultimate model that we seem to be converging on, let's adopt it as a standard, and then let's move from there and move to other things. I've been following a lot on what is happening around the Beacon protocol. It's quite interesting, that they're now using it for other things. For example, energy in the energy sector as well. But these are the kinds of discussions I would love to have on Godan. I should not be talking anymore. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And that's really relevant. Beacon protocol is like literally changing the landscape of, digital apps in India. People used to think only startups from US could build a great business. And now that's not the case. Like you can have literally the government-owned apps, government-owned digital infrastructure, like Uber services, right? So you don't have to pay any company for a brokerage to, book a taxi. It can be a government-owned service which runs perfectly well, and you don't. It's the first time that we don't have to complain that hey, it's such a messy service that the government does not do this or does not do that. So it's like really encouraging that there could be government-owned digital infrastructure that actually works on ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really surprising and works really well. So
yeah, but let's see how we can include these kinds of so again the issue will be thinking about how we can create that community for continued discussions around these themes. Absolutely. Whether it's something we do at Godan, whether we can partner with others who have these email based discussion forums like D Groups is what we work with, the D Groups Foundation. And they are like they're an organization that brings all the development partners around it. But we use, we used email-based discussions. I'm still very traditional and still prefer to have something in my email rather than go onto social media and do a discussion there. I find that I don't see myself being able to have a structured discussion on WhatsApp, but I prefer to have it on email because then I can follow the thread.
What's it called again? D
Groups Foundation, so
D-Groups.
dgroups.io
Okay.
is what we use. So it was designed initially as a group of development partners developing this platform that was non-commercial. And we've continued the same principle, although now the service providers have changed, but we are still going on the same principles that our goal is that most development partners can then work with these platforms to then manage their communities, online communities of practice. Yeah, so something we could discuss. Yeah,
Absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, and while doing that, we are also creating actual programs to train the next generation of youth to like bring the discussion to a broader audience as well. The stage is open for any collaborations as well, like not just constrained to discussions, but actually action. So
Yeah. And I appreciate the fact that we have people working at different levels in the audience today. So then it's nice to see someone like Brian who can talk about how do I capture data, let's say from IoT, how do I do the integration? Then someone else who's talking about how do I do it at the level of my farming community, like the models that was mentioned before. And then now, how do we go from the farming community to aggregate it to for example, in Kenya, we could talk about the county level, and then from county to the federal level or to the state level. Again, these are all ways of appreciating how the data we collect at one point, if it's aggregated, if it's useful, and if it's used by someone else, then we need to value the effort put into collecting the data. And that's another element we can talk about is how do you then, well, people talk about monetizing, but I think it's also about how do we give credit to whoever did the work? Because sometimes you might want to do it because you are appreciated for what you've done. Someone else down the line says, actually, I could not get to this point without this data that was collected there. So people then feel, encouraged to keep on doing it,
yes,
motivated to do that.
absolutely.
And I think that's what a lot of the data is about.
And that's really important in the age of AI, where we have to train a lot of data and you use up a lot of the local information. We were just talking to one of the AI services by Google, which is trying to train, AI to learn like the local dialects in like rural corners of each and every country. So
Right.
how do you credit? How do you, actually give due credit to each and every person who participated, who actually, pay them for their efforts to actually create the data set? That's super important.
And that's something we could also look at in the case of Godan, like how do you bring that technology of developing the local language, let's say the local language skills for an AI to take it down to all our countries and using the local languages. Is that going to be open source or not? At least the methodology can be open source, and then we can just do it. And we can all collaborate and do and end up being able to now translate again eventually the benefits that it works the other way around. Whatever you are contributing can be translated to someone else who is not in your country in a totally different language, but they might be in a similar ecosystem as you are and facing the same problem as Abhinav. The other Abhinav was saying that the solutions library is where we can then find solutions library or the challenges library. So that is, I find someone who's got a similar challenge to mine, and I say, okay, well, the solution that they used might be, applicable to my case. Let's try it and adapt it, and you have less work to do.
Yes, and that's what we will have for the next webinar. we'll be inviting Abhinav Agarwal to discuss more about the solutions and challenges library so that we can actually build this platform together. We can communicate and, create those solutions together. Yeah, let's convert that into action in our next
That's
session.
Looking
selling it a
forward to
bit too much. It's going to be more on frugal technologies
Yes.
and solutions that can be qualified as frugal innovations and how they're
Yeah.
helping to solve wicked problems. So, yeah, mostly on that.
excellent.
And just to close, probably just to put a little bit of weight on that next session, to now speak to what I believe Madam Sebra has spoken about. Now, today we have delved into that data part, and also I believe Christian, you have highlighted it. Today we have delved into that data part. Also, and we also believe we have businesses that can come directly out of that data part, but we have now the other section, which is the frugal innovations, which they are they somehow contribute or are as a result of open data, and seeing analysis of of open data, and seeing what are the local solutions that can be developed, and we felt that would be really key. And the amazing part of the frugal innovations is it redefines the meaning of innovations, especially in African context and the Asian context. Is looking how are we breaking, bringing up very simple solutions that make things actually work, rather than very complex things that people get skeptical about. So I believe it would be a very nice session that we'll be doing next month, and that's still tying to the aspect of youth employability. Thank you.
You for sharing this. And just to conclude, thank you so much for Harriet to take us through the journey of design thinking and how design thinking can be used to have open data and enhance the employability for youths, and sharing the whole journey of how he developed his venture in Africa, how it led to Godan's growth, collaboration with Godan, and how everyone like you can collaborate with Godan and make it part of the larger ecosystem. And yeah, thank you so much for everybody for participating. Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you so much, Abhinav. Thank you, Brian, Sabira, Derek, Mari, Margaret. Um, yes, I hope I'm not missing anybody. And thank you, anybody on YouTube who is watching it live. See you and catch you next time.
Bye.
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 Sabira.